Every city has its outskirts, and after 2 years of building this city, I want to walk beyond its streets, turning an otherwise boring birch forest into a place full of life and hidden secrets, with cabins tucked between the trees, a whole new river, and terrain all reshaped by hand. This is the next step in my biggest terraforming project yet, and we're only getting started. So let's sit back in Minecraft. This place is going to look so different by the end of this video. This is one part of the custom terrain, and you can see how this is looking. Of course, there's not many trees. This is going to be a very forested area, but man, it's going to look so cool. You can even see as well, the path basically segments this entire area. Apart from me putting through a train line, which we're also going to be working on, this area has not changed at all. And I mean that. I mean, look, there's even some of my original carrot farms that are just sitting here. They've been here for over 2 years now. And surprised they're still standing. There's no water getting to these crops. The first step for this area is definitely going to be to clear out these trees, because once they're out of the way, we can really start to plan out this area. Look at what I've found just in amongst these trees. Just this old mine from who knows when, and clearly a lot of mushrooms has been spreading down here. I mean, if that doesn't tell you just how old this place is, I mean, that's crazy. With all the trees gone, we are left with just this wasteland, which I think is quite cool. But still, we really need to populate this area. But before we do that, let's first of all work on this train line. Train lines are meant to be as straight as possible, and so you can see we've got just these strange bends, and it really is not natural, it's not realistic either. So we're going to basically start ripping up this entire train line. So we'll remove from here, we're just going to bring it all the way down basically to the train bridge that crosses the river. Basically just try and reroute this thing so it's slightly more natural. We're going to have another span coming off this way, and it's basically going to go up the edge of the cliff. You can see that we're starting work on these hills. It's going to be a big cliff, and it's going to basically run along the edge above the water. It's going to look very, very cool. So let's start ripping up this train line. So with all the tracks ripped up, I'm now just basically adding in all this coarse dirt. I kind of want to just get rid of the gravel. I feel like it looks good in the city, but not really in this area where it's just all grass. So it's just going to be coarse dirt which is surrounding the train tracks. And once this is replaced, we can start laying in the anvils again. And so for ease of the anvils, I'm thinking we're just going to start turning it up this way now. And we're going to have to add in some more coarse dirt along the edge, just to try and pad it out some more. And for something you may have noticed, I've turned on a Java UI pack just to try and make the Bedrock Edition UI slightly nicer and a bit better for a lot of people. And so if you notice some changes, that's why. So let me know if you think it's better. And so now it's time to get in the spruce slabs. These are called sleepers, and they basically just hold in the rails and hold in the entire tracks together. And because of how I've done them, I basically just do one block in between every single sleeper, so it should still line up even though we've completely changed how the tracks look. So you can see that it's just happened. And then I put some on the outside as well, just to try and make it as realistic as possible. And so I want to try and have a spur coming off of this train track and kind of going in this general direction. So I'm going to just place in a whole lot of coarse dirt like this. I'm just going to try and build up the terrain. And of course, train tracks have a nice smooth slope. So that's why I'm going to try and make it not that high up off the ground. And it's basically going to get higher and higher. And so I've basically went and created that kind of spur. This is when it gets sort of complicated. So you can see I try and keep all the anvils just a block apart, and then it gets here. And you can see it kind of gets a little bit hectic, but it works quite well. And then I basically just go through, whenever there's a gap, I basically just put in a slab. And so eventually it just turns into something like that, which is quite nice, quite straightforward. Again, once we build up the terrain, it will look so much better. So I'm going to remove all of the coarse dirt here. Might as well just try and reclaim as much resources as possible. And you can see as well the original beach that was here. So I must have changed this a long time ago. I don't even remember doing it. I'm now just trying to tidy up just roundabout where the coarse dirt is. I've kind of just changed how this is laid out just ever slightly. I've made the slope slightly more gradual, and I'm trying to make this a bit smoother as well, so it's nice and smooth going into the main train line. Because I've noticed this sort of part here where the water's it goes really far in. I'm thinking maybe we could try and make some kind of train bridge over here. I'm not exactly sure, just a little wooden sort of basic train bridge, and then we can bring it back round to a mountain around this kind of area. And you can even see a ruined portal, and I forgot this was here. This is one of the first things that I ever discovered, because the world spawn is just right over there. This is one of the first things I've ever seen in this world. Once we bring this train track just ever so slightly further, kind of in this sort of area, that's where we're just going to stop the train tracks. We're not going to go any further than there. So with the train tracks all complete, it's now time to start working on the main terraforming, and I've got quite a number of ideas. If we go up to where we started this massive project, you can see that there's a massive gaping hole in the mountain. So let's go up here to this path, because this is the new height. That was the original path, and you can see I've just basically raised it up. So we're going to start from right here, and I'm thinking we're going to bring it along, and it's going to slope down and then slope back up, and then it's going to reach that train line there. So let's try and get in what I call them cobwebs. You can see it's just basically these big outlines, and so I'm basically going to get these in. That will kind of determine where the terrain is going to go. And so this is the first of those big lines that I've put in. And you can see I've kind of put it right up against the train track, and it's going to as if the train track has been cut through the mountain, and it's going to go into a tunnel. I'm probably going to get rid of that train bridge. I wasn't exactly sure what to do with the train bridge, whether to raise that up as well, but no, we're just going to get rid of it and basically turn this into a massive tunnel. And so it's now time to work on this side of the train bridge, and I want a little bit of room either side of these sleepers that we put in. So I'm going to try and build up the stone in this kind of area, and then I always want that kind of overhang. You can see that I've put the grass block ever so slightly further out, and then that basically allows us to build on top. And so now we can just continue this kind of shape all the way over here, and it will be the same with this kind of train track, where we're going to bring it up and then basically overhang it once more. So that's the first full sort of cobweb and outline that we've got in now. You can see that I've even brought it around here, and I've even put a little rock here and just kind of terraformed this little area. I'm really looking forward to working on this, and I think the next step is really just going to finalize this sort of central area. You can see because of the train tracks, it sort of creates this wedge shape. So we work in this area, we can tick off quite a large part right in the center of the project. And so to get all the grass for this project, I'm basically just going underneath the terraforming and just taking away from here. Again, if you want to see me build all this, you can see some of the previous videos on the channel. You can watch it after this one. But this is where I'm getting all the grass to basically do this entire project. And it's quite self-sufficient as well, because for every one layer of grass that we put on top, we get 3 layers from below. So yeah, it's basically paying for itself. And so for this outline coming from the center of this wedge, I'm basically going to make it slope up, and then either side will have those kind of cliffs. And again, once we get trees all over this place, it's going to make such a difference. And so you can see that these outlines basically get shorter and shorter as they go along, till this one's just a slope up. So this is definitely the easiest way to do terraforming. A lot of people find terraforming quite daunting. They get quite scared about doing it. It's really not that difficult if you just make it easier for yourself. So this one here, I've made it slightly too tall, so I'm just going to get rid of this entire thing. In fact, looking at it, let's just skip the stone entirely and just go straight to the grass. And of course, like anything which is hard to do, best thing is just to start, because once you start, now you can really just improve and get better the more that you do it. So you can see that all of a sudden we've now got the outlines for basically this entire slope going up this hill. And so let's really sort of work on this side here, because I'm just going to basically put in this entire stone outline, and then we'll start getting the grass on top as well. So when you do a lot of outlines, it basically becomes something like this, where it's just filling in the gaps, which again is very straightforward. And you just try and make it this nice sort of curved shape, or at least I try to. And then all of a sudden, you've just got a few blocks left, and now you've got a completed cliff face, which I think actually looks quite good. I think there's a bit too square, so I'm just going to knock a hole in there and then basically fill in behind it. I think it looks really quite good for how simple it actually is. And once we get trees everywhere, I think it looks so much better. So now what was once just an awkward looking train line in the middle of nowhere is now sort of just, it looks really cool, like it's just been carved away into the stone so they can try and get a train line. And so to help with this next part of the terraforming, I'm basically going to try and line up the start of the tunnel. Of course, this is going to go into a tunnel, it's going to continue, so we can basically start paving over the train track very shortly. So let's try and think where this should go, and I'm thinking right here. The reason I want to go here is I think this will give us enough of a run up for the stone. We can continue that further back. And then we're going to lower this train track as well, ever so slightly, because that's quite a steep incline. And so that's the tunnel now in place, or the tunnel entrance rather, which means we can continue putting in the stone. We can even start the stone on this side as well. And now we can start working on top of the tunnel as well. I'm now going to start work on sort of laying in the groundworks for this side of the train tracks. Again, you can see I've built up either sides of the tunnel. I think once we get some more stuff on the top, it'll look quite good, but we need to get up there first. So let's start working on this side. And again, it's just going to be very similar to that side as well. Nothing is really going to change. It's going to look exactly the same. So let's quickly do that. And there we go. That's both sides completed. I even started work on some of the lines above the tunnel. I'm still to lower this part. We will be doing that at some point shortly. But you can see I've just kind of put in some lines and basically just tried to continue the structure of this hill. And so from up here, you can really start to see just how this area is going to be. There's a big flat part there, so we can definitely do some things, some really cool things as well. And then again, it's going to be quite flat and quite sort of just a smooth gradual decline towards the river. So I'm basically just going to keep getting grass and just filling in this area. This is going to take a little while. And here we have it. The entire hill is completely filled in. Ow. You can see that I've removed the original carrots that were here for such a long time. There's still some dirt. I basically moved to dirt rather than grass blocks because it was taking too long to mine all the grass. So I just used some dirt from the base. Look at this place though. The tunnel's looking quite good. I didn't go that far up. I've just kind of brought it to this point. There's these little patches here, which I'll explain in just a moment. But you can see this is kind of where I am. And then round this side as well, I brought it basically to where the train line ends. And see there's just kind of this drop here. Back around this corner, you can see how this is looking. And I think it looks so cool. I mean, imagine a train coming around here and just round the corner. And then you just see the city coming into view. Now, when I was originally putting in this train line through this birch forest, you saw those two bits of path up there. There was originally a village here, and you can see the original path is just below. I've basically just moved it further up, just to try and recreate it, still keep a bit of history in the world. So I basically ran this train line straight through a village, which wasn't the nicest thing to do, but you can see this is the village centre here, and you can even see some of the remnants from the house. And now I moved all the villagers into this massive birch house in here, and I've not even finished I ran out of resources when I was building this. As the terrain gets higher, this house gets lower and lower, and it's harder and harder for me to justify it being here. So eventually this house is going to go, but not today. And what we do with the villagers, I'm not exactly sure, because I would like to have a western town in that savanna biome. You can see some spruce trees. That's a whole other project. If you want to see more of that, you can check out some of the more recent videos. But for now, they're going to stay in that house, that unfinished house. I'm just going to continue working in this kind of area. I've also moved the train line down just by a block. You can see I've not filled in just there, but you can see this is just remaining at the same height. And this tunnel just exiting out here, I think it looks really cool as well. And so I'm very, very happy to say that that's the main sort of terraforming project complete. And so now it's time to start working on the trees and the river, and I think that's what we're going to tackle first. Try and get some river edges in first, and I'm basically going to do that with this small selection of blocks. And you can see what I've done around this edge here, and we're basically going to recreate that on the entire river. So it's going to look absolutely fantastic when this is complete. And you can see that it's just basically oak leaves, birch leaves, and then a bit of moss as well. And it just creates this really cool, almost like a swamp just throughout the river's edge. And so let's first of all think, why would moss be clumping up here? It's definitely falling off the trees, and it's getting caught in amongst all of these sort of piers and the bridges as well. So I've brought in some spruce logs as well, because I would quite like some piers in this kind of area, maybe even some houses sitting off on the water. And so I'm thinking something like this. Every 3 blocks on the diagonal, we're just going to put up a pillar just like that, and this is going to be the start of a sort of pier kind of area. And then we can start stripping these logs just to try and get a nicer texture. I feel like just the bark is way too dark, and this just all in all looks nice. It's kind of like it's been treated before it went in the water. So we're just basically going to spam all of these leaves everywhere, and it's going to be quite far out as well. And we want it to be as dense as possible right now, because we're going to cut it back majorly using our shears. And now on this end of the pier, this is when it's going to get slightly stranger, because if you imagine this is a river, there's a current blowing these leaves down the water, and so it's going to get caught around certain parts. So there's not going to be very much on this side of the posts. It's mostly going to get caught up in amongst underneath these buildings. And then now that we're back to the main sort of river, I'm just going to basically spam it in just like we were before. And so now with all the leaves in place, it's now time to just break most of them away and basically just leave just a few scattered floating around on top. And again, I'm going to leave a lot underneath the pier, because again, a lot of these leaves are going to clump up, and that's just how water works. And there's not going to be too much behind the pillars, and basically just going to go around them. So the likes of this one, I might just keep it basically like that. Not too much has changed. And so with all the leaves in, we can start getting in some moss as well. And this is only the first part of the moss. We're going to put moss carpets as well. And this is basically going to just fill in and blend between the leaves and the grass. So it should look something kind of like that. And because it's moss, we can even put grass on top as well to give it a bit more texture. And I think it will just all in all make this area look so much better. So I can just put the moss carpets on top of the grass and on top of these sort of parts here. And you can see that it basically just adds more texture, like I said, and it just sort of blends it in. Of course, once we get bone meal up in this part, it will look much better as well. And so now it's time to just get some grass just on top of the moss blocks. Try not to fall in between the water. And you don't want to try and get them on top of this part, because this is where the wood is going to be going. So something a bit like that, and then it should just start to densify and just make it look so much more busy. There's just a bit of texture and 3D-ness. And so now we can just go through and basically just bone meal on top of the grass. And did I get that naturally? I did not know you could bone meal these. And what's more as well is it will stop Enderman from picking up these blocks, because that was a massive problem that I had in this area. And so after just bone mealing this sort of first couple layers of the grass, I'm going to start putting in some lily pads as well. I'm going to try and reach out further into the water just to try and add some more detail. And again, a bit more depth and colour. By going up here, you get a bit of a different sort of view of this area. It looks so much better now. But let's right now focus on trying to get in this kind of pier and basically what this thing is going to be. And so I'm thinking this thing's just going to be basically just a boathouse. And it's going to be somewhat abandoned. Maybe not abandoned, but it's not going to be getting used too often because there's way too much shrubs and leaves and all that in here for it to make it look like people are using it. So I'm going to basically just make it kind of this wide. This is going to be the sort of shell of the building once we build it up, and then this is going to be, again, just a pier. And so now it's time to just start getting in the floor for this pier. And you can see I'm basically going to use the outlines that we've put in place already and just kind of go at that diagonal angle that we've already set. And so it eventually turns into something like that, and then we'll start trying to get in this boathouse as well. And so now that I've put in the posts on this side, I'm going to start filling in the floor over here as well. And I'm basically just going to butt it right up against the terrain. So I'm just going to fill in these with dirt, just so it sort of blends in. That's what I'm trying to go for. And so I think to try and texture up this pier, I'm going to remove some of the planks and then simply just replace it with trapdoors. You can see already it's just a different kind of texture, slightly different color as well. And these sort of metal parts really look like it's sort of handmade and kind of pieced together. I'm going to try and place them in this orientation so that the planks on the trapdoors match the planks on the slabs as well. And then before I forget, I'm going to quickly bone meal this entire area just to make sure that no endermen try and steal any of the blocks, and because I've got quite a lot on me just now. And so that's that done. The entire area has grass everywhere. I even quickly built up the boathouse, which I think turned out really quite well. I've even put some crates here as well. This is mostly just for storage, but you can see this kind of looks quite nice. I quite like the idea of just putting in these oak logs, and I think it just looks, I don't know what to put in between. I don't want to put in mangrove wood because we've got a mangrove house right there. I think it turned out really well, and it looks even better from this side of the river. So you can see it's just got that nice shape. Definitely tricky building at an angle, but certainly worth it because you get some unique builds like that. And so I've brought some more resources. I'm basically going to try and add in a lot of crates in this kind of area because it's a little port. It's a little sort of storage area. We might as well get some crates in. And some of my favourite blocks for crates are looms, the beehives as well. I'm going to put in a lectern just because why not? They kind of look like they've just kind of been shipped there. They're just sitting, waiting to go. And just very simple things like that just add in a lot of detail and a lot of life. And I'm very happy to say with that, that's this entire sort of portion here complete. I did want to work on this area, and we will very shortly, but let's get some trees in first, because I want this area to be completely different from anything else. It's going to be built up, but not quite like that. We're going to have the trees in this area. The trees are basically going to shape it, so we need to get them in first. And this could be a lot easier said than done, because we can see that there's a lot of trees here, but it's not quite a dense forest. I want this to be really quite dense, so we're going to have to try and transition from not very many trees to quite a dense forest. And so looking at this area, I think the first tree is going to be right here. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know this trick. I'm going to get rid of the sapling just now. I'm basically going to surround this in fences and then place back the sapling and start bone mealing, and it should give us a big Minecraft tree. Just like that. Perfect size as well. So if you want nice big trees but you don't want to have to build them yourself, this is definitely the trick for you. I also want a lot of trees really close to this little harbour that we've put, so I'm going to build one right here, basically on the edge of the planks. This does use a lot of bone meal, so make sure you've got a mob farm like me because you're going to run out very, very quickly. I'm also going to watch how close I get to the train track. I don't want the trees basically overhanging. I just kind of want it as if they've cleared the trees and then dynamited this out. So I need to watch just how close I'm getting to these tracks. But you can see with these trees, they're not too close. They're next to it, but they're not encroaching. And for this kind of central part where the railway sort of forks, I'm going to try and put a lot of trees here. This is going to be a very, very dense part of the forest. There we go. With this last tree, that's kind of this area complete. I would like some more trees, especially in this kind of area, but I've really ran out of bone meal. I've completely exhausted all of the bone meal in this world, so I'm going to have to AFK at the mob farm later on. But for now, there's a lot of trees, and that's made quite a difference when you're just in this area. I mean, take a look at it from here. This just looks so cool now, and that no longer looks kind of out of place. It belongs in this sort of dense environment. And I must say, the transition between the forested area and the castle area works really well as well. And I think the main reason for that is because this is on a cliff, and trees try to grow where they can get water and where they can get sunlight. So I'm not surprised there's not many trees up high, but there are a lot of trees as it gets closer to the river. And so this kind of view right here just looks I think, really cool now. Which means it's now time to start work on the last part of this video, which is this kind of area here. And you can see I've not got many trees in this kind of spot. And I want basically more buildings kind of like that, or that kind of theme, just in this kind of area, because people would be living here. It might just be slightly outside the city, but that doesn't mean people wouldn't want to stay here. And so I'm thinking similar kind of log cabins to that, just in this kind of area. I've also left this hole here. This is a really old thing from a long time ago, and I believe there's an amethyst geode at the bottom of this staircase. And yeah, here we are. So you can see this is one of the oldest geodes in this world. I don't know how I found it, probably from that cave, but yeah, I just basically mined up all those years ago, and that's just been growing loads of amethysts as we've been working in this area. But I'm thinking right here in the center where there's this open spot, there's going to be probably a campfire, and then we're going to have a house here, and it's going to be slightly on stilts. It's going to be ever so slightly in the water, which is going to look quite cool. And then we can maybe have something on this side as well, maybe some piers again coming off. We could maybe in the future get some boats. So I'd love to have a boat building video where I just go around adding loads of boats everywhere. So we might do that at a later date. But this part here turned out really nice as well with the train track. That might be slightly too close. Trains might hit into those leaves, so we might have to shave some back. But just look at this here with all the trees up there as well. Take a look at that view with the sun and then the city just coming into view as well. So let's get started in this area. And so again, it's going to be that similar theme. So we're going to go up here with just spruce wood, and I'm basically going to shave the bottom as well, just so it kind of blends into the terrain. We'll just drop that sand down there as well. And then every 3 blocks is where there's going to be a pillar. And so now it's time to start getting in the slabs for the underside. And this will also double as the floor. You can see I've kind of done this at a slight angle, which I think looks quite good. And now I'm just going to get in the walls as well. And it's going to be exactly the same as that house over there, the little boathouse. And something I do quite often to make sure that I've got enough room and enough storage things, I basically try and build it within the house, so that can just stay there once this gets built up. And now we can start getting in the glass, and it's just going to be the exact same as the other building, which is just brown glass. And now we can start getting in the roof, and it's going to be so much easier as I fall down, and it should be so much easier than that other house because we're no longer building at a diagonal, it's just straight on, and it's much simpler. And we'll even put a little window in there just to try and add a bit more light. And then to make sure light is actually coming from this house, we'll put a lantern right there, and then just at night time there'll be a little glow coming from that window. You can even see it as well during the day, which is quite cool. And now, like I said, this is going to be a little community, so we're going to have a step down, and then just to help with the path, I'm going to just use the actual Minecraft paths, and then we'll come back and we'll put coarse dirt on it just once we sort of plan it out and figure out where this is going to go. And I'm basically going to do the exact same thing again over on this side as well. Just another little house which we can connect up into this little community. And these are so easy to build. I mean, I highly recommend it if you need a quick starter base somewhere. And now it's these just last finishing touches on the roof, which I didn't even do in the other houses. And I think I'm just going to straight up remove these path blocks and just replace them with coarse dirt. Because they're so thin, I don't think it's really much of a point trying to add loads and loads of different blocks and different textures. It's not really necessary. And I've even brought a path all the way up to here where this little partly finished bridge is. This is going to lead to a future area, because I remember reading a comment about this really cool idea for a cove, sort of almost like a dock that's under a cliff. It's going to look really cool, and that's going to be in this kind of area. So I'm looking forward to building that. But for now, we're just going to basically have it come up to this bridge, and then that's where it's going to stop. So now that that's complete, we can get this campfire in. I mean, basically call this kind of area done. So I'm thinking probably just right there. And now this little community has got fire. It's just very nice here. And of course, you get a lovely view of the train station. That's quite ugly. We need to work on that in a future video. But one last thing in this area before it's finally complete. We need to continue working on this river, and then basically try and make it as if all this sort of debris is just kind of getting lost in the ocean. So I think to quickly finish one side, we'll just continue this further up and basically just surround it in these houses. So I have finished the river, but there's something I'm just going to quickly do over here in the city centre. One of the things I'm going to do whilst we're here in the city centre is get one of you guys on the comment wall. And this goes to I'd Light, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, who says, I love this series, man. Hope new episodes are as fire as this one. I really do appreciate that. You also gave a name suggestion for the Happy Ghast we got in the last video. I really like that name. However, there's one name which I prefer. I do think it's got a good ring. I think many of the names had a good ring, but this one I just thought it just sounded quite sweet. And this is a name by JammyBoy2, who has put a lot of comments recently and is always very active and has been for a while. This is Gabriel the Ghast, and I think Gabriel's such a good name for this guy. So thank you very much for that good name suggestion. Of course, there are many good names, but that one I just thought had a good ring to it. But now I need to go and I need to fix a mistake that I made, because this is a building that you should recognize if you're on the Discord. I highly recommend that you join if you're not. But I actually made a mistake when building this. You see, this is meant to be grey glass and I accidentally put brown, and now I'm just destroying the whole building. And so let's very quickly just swap this out and make sure that this looks as it should. And there we go, that was a very easy change and a very easy fix. Sorry about that, and now I'm just falling in this hole. I've always been falling in holes. And now back over here, you can see that that is the entire river completed. And I even put a tree right here at the back of this mangrove house. I think this looks so cool now. I mean, this is entirely different to how we started this video. And I must say, I think this is definitely just one of the biggest and best projects I've ever undertaken. I mean, just how it turned out, I'm really happy with. And it's just turned what was otherwise a bit of a boring and neglected part of the world into just quite a spectacle, I think. I mean, it's not often that you've got a massive terraforming project, and what's more is these can lead to so many cool destinations. So we've basically unlocked whole new areas and whole new possibilities for building. Of course, right now there's not too much, but at a later date, this will be probably one of my, again, another favourite part of the city. You can see that there's still this massive section missing, which will come in due course, and there's of course more around there as well. But this has been such a fun project to work on, and I think the blend between this busier area and this more sparse area, I think it really turned out quite well. It flows quite naturally, and it kind of makes sense. I don't know why, but it just works here. So you've still got this view, but now you can look over and you can see just the density of this forest over here. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with this area. I hope you are as well. So thank you very much for watching, as always. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate every single one of you that watch. So thank you very, very much.